That's ever happened to you? Bad acting. No. Whether that's ever happened to you, a relatively small dispute between neighbours left to fester that turns ugly. One example of the kind of dispute that can be resolved by mediation through the Community Justice Centre here in the Northern Territory. Over the next few weeks, as we did last week, you and I will be learning about the work that the centre does and the ways that it could help to improve your life here in the Northern Territory. Your special guests today on ABC Radio Darwin, right across the Northern Territory. Claire Cowan is the practice manager at the Darwin Centre. Claire, hello, welcome back.
Hi, Adam.
And Andy Wharton is a consultant mediator with the centre. Andy, hello.
G'day, Adam.
Conflict, let's start with that. What is it?
Look, conflict in its purest form is basically a struggle or a clash of interest or opinion or even principles between people or between parties. And it's always going to be found in society. So it might be seated in relationships. It might be seated in a conflict of values. It might be structural. It might be a power-based thing. That's conflict in a nutshell. People do thesis on what is conflict. So that's the 10-second version.
Conflict, it's interesting, isn't it? Because some people say, I'm no good at conflict. I will try and avoid conflict at all costs. Let things fester. Other people, as soon as they're even a little bit nervous, go straight to conflict. Like, hello, my name's Adam. Yeah, I've met you 4 times before, because they're nervous about it. I mean, they don't mean to come out being so aggressive and conflicting, but that's what happens.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Everyone responds in different ways. And, conflict, it's ever present. It's not necessarily a bad thing either. I mean, conflict can have positive spin-offs. It can make people collaborate, like it can force people to collaborate. It can foster communication. It can strengthen institutions. It can build relationships. So it's not all bad. But, by the same token, peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of violence. So this is a really important point. To have peace, you need to be able to competently respond to and constructively respond to and deal with conflict. So the running away that you mentioned before, that's not conducive to peace, and that's not conducive to good workplaces or good relationships.
So, Claire, what do you say when someone goes, oh, no, I don't do conflict?
I would say to them that I think we're all doing conflict, and sometimes that's actually externally with people, and often we would name we're doing it internally with ourselves as well. And I think the beauty of mediation is sometimes if we're not used to doing conflict or we're not doing it in the way we want to, then you've got that third person, that mediator, who's not going to tell you what to do, but's really going to support you actually through a conversation that's going to be safe and respectful.
I would imagine often people would go, no, I don't do conflict because of their own experience, particularly probably their own experience watching their parents fight, and they've gone, I don't, if they've been in a pretty, not an idyllic marriage when they were growing up as children, and they say, I don't want to do conflict because the only way that I see conflict is 2 people yelling at each other. How does mediation fit into that?
So mediation is really somewhere in the middle between trying to work it out on your own with those people, that other person, and that really pointy end of adjudication or court where somebody's deciding the outcome for you. So mediation fits sort of in between those 2 extremes where people are getting, as I said earlier, people are getting a structure, and they're getting a person to help them come together to talk through really challenging things. So, yeah, it's that space where they can be guided to have a conversation.
So in a nutshell, Adam, there are 3 ways that we can deal with conflict. So one is a power-based way, which is basically the person or the institution, the party that has the most power, exerts that power and wins. So it's zero-sum. There's a winner, there's a loser.
The loudest shouter.
It could be the loudest shouter. It could be the wealthiest, loudest shouter, whoever's got the power. Then there's a rights-based way of approaching conflict, and that's very much what we see in the courts. Someone will make a decision and enforce a decision based on a lawful or other right. Again, there's a winner and a loser. It's zero-sum. The third way, and this is where mediation sits, is the interest-based way of resolving conflict, and that is where we're looking for mutual agreement. We're looking for common ground, and we're looking to explore the interests behind the positions. That is a win-win, and that's where we sit with mediation. Now, it may not be a win everything you want, but it's definitely more of a win-win than the power and the rights based approaches.
So what happened before? So I described, people running away from conflict because they go, the only conflict I've ever seen is my parents yelling at each other. I don't want to participate in that. One of the other ways that people will engage themselves in conflict to try and win is by putting on the emotional side. I work so hard. I'm a single parent. I need you to do this because if you don't do this, oh woe is me and poor me. How dare you do this to me? I'm just a poor person. What happens out of that?
I think that's a really powerful point, Adam, and we're going to talk a bit more about the process soon. And in terms of that process, we really do bring people in and have those individual conversations. Hey, where are you at? What is happening for you? And it's actually from that place of people identifying and naming their needs. People are usually better positioned then for us to coach and support them to go, okay, so we've named what's happening for you. What's your best guess about what's happening for the other people in this situation?
And is that what happens before the participants, Claire, come to the mediation table?
Yeah, so it's called an intake process. People might call us or send us an email, even come in and visit us at the office, and we'll get a snapshot, hey, of what's the issue, what's bringing you to mediation. We'll talk to them about the service and the process so that they feel really clear about what they're coming to be engaged with, and we'll get a sense of who else is involved. And you know what? Sometimes that conversation's ongoing. It's not a tidy understanding of that in one conversation. So we're starting to work out in that process who really needs to be a part of this conversation.
Okay, so that's before you come to the table.
Yeah.
What happens? I'll start with you, Andy. What happens in the mediation? What can people expect when they enter that situation?
Yeah, so what they can expect as a backdrop is a mediator who is impartial, who's not a decision maker, who's going to help foster a safe environment for everybody to operate in, and who's right across their brief in terms of this. And when I say this, I mean the process. So imagine a diamond. And at the top of the diamond, it's obviously very pointy, and at the very bottom of the diamond, it's also very pointy. And in the middle of the diamond, it's as broad as it can be. So it's the widest part of the diamond. We start at the top of the diamond with the mediator laying out the process and the rules of operation, if you like, or the rules of engagement for the day. And then the mediator will ask each participant to provide what we call an opening statement, a real snapshot, 2 to 3 minutes of how you view the issue, and most importantly, why you've come to mediation and what it is you might expect out of today. Each party does that, and the mediator then summarises that back to them. And this is really important. It actually goes to the point you were talking about before when it comes to emotion in mediations. By the mediator summarising it back to the parties, it does a couple of things. First of all, it clarifies to make sure the mediator's understood, but also it gives both participants each other's stories from the one voice, and that one voice may detoxify or de-emotionise, if that's probably not a word, take the emotion out of any of those things that we've heard from the parties. And that sets the scene for the rest of the mediation. The most important part comes next, because out of those opening statements, we're going to form an agenda. So imagine a whiteboard. We're literally going to write down what the key issues are from what we've heard from the participants, and that's the backbone of the mediation. That's what we're going to work off throughout the mediation.
I just wonder, sometimes in this mediation, I can imagine it's like fact or conflict, the actual physical or the actual conflict is a very small part of actually the emotions. Like, people are full of emotions for these things to happen in the first place.
Yeah, you're right, Adam. And as Andy's been saying, what we're looking to do when we do that initial part of the mediation is, they're coming and naming on that agenda, hey, these are the issues that are tripping us up. So they get up there. But when we move further into that mediation process, it's their agenda. So they're looking at it going, hey, this is what matters to me. As mediators, our key role is to kind of what we call digging for the yam here in the Territory, is to get underneath and go, hey, is it that it's actually this that really matters to you? So we're being curious too. And we might ask the other participant, hey, what is it that you're hearing? What's your best guess about what really matters to them here? So we don't want to cut off They've got to let off steam. You're talking about that emotion. You've got to give... We're used to emotion being in the room and not being afraid of it. You've got to let that kind of pressure cooker lid come off in a safe way. We set really clear guidelines around what that will look like and we get agreement. But then we let that sort of get aired, and then we're listening for the yam and we're helping them to listen to that for each other.
Yeah, but what happens if that emotion is so high? Andy, I cannot be in the room with you. I'm going to throttle you if I see you. What happens when people go, I can't be in the same space as that person?
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, if that happens, and that happens quite often, if it happens during a mediation, we take what we call a private session and we just have one-on-ones with each of the party. We recheck. We check on welfare, because remember, everyone's there voluntarily. You're not forced to be in the room.
Yeah.
And safety's paramount. So we deal with that. It's not a problem. Other mediations, even before they've started, particularly some of the personal violence restraining order work that we do at the CJC, they will openly say, I cannot be in the room. They'll have medical certificates saying, should not be near this person because it causes stress and anxiety and so forth. We do what's called a shuttle mediation for those. So we actually have them in separate rooms. We strategically think out the safety of the building, and the mediator effectively runs literally shuttles between the two rooms. It's a longer process, but it's the same process, and it works.
Is there a mediation that stands out for you, Andy?
Oh, look, there's lots, Adam. I mean, the most recent one I did, and obviously making sure to de-identify it, was a committee, and the committee hadn't communicated properly, so it was a multi-party mediation. That this committee hadn't communicated properly with each other for about a year, and it was actually impacting the operations on the ground of their organisation. We spent 7 hours in a room with all of the members of this board, and at the end of it, got to an agreement, and that organisation is now properly functioning.
That's good. That's good.
And you get these results come all the time. And we've got some crackers in future episodes to share some of the real detail with you. In fact, we're even hoping to get a former party or participant to a mediation to come on air and have a chat about their experience from their eyes.
You're on ABC Radio Darwin. Adam Steer with you this morning. Our second part of our special series on our Community Justice Centre. This is right across the Northern Territory. Claire Cohen is the practice manager at the Darwin Centre. Andy Wharton, consultant mediator with the centre. Start with you, Claire. What's your key message from today? Look,
I think what we would recommend to people is start early. Come in early rather than, allowing things to fester. Come in early and get some help and support with that, because the earlier we catch it, the lower the fire, lower the heat.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Claire there. And, the other part of my private consultancy is the investigation side, and the amount of cases that come across my desk every single day that could most likely have been resolved, maybe not even with a mediation, maybe just with a critical conversation, is just incredible. These things can be nipped in the bud. But that takes courage, it takes leadership, and it takes recognition. So mediate early, that's definitely the message.
Well, good on you too. Thank you for coming in today. We will see you next week. Mediate well.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
James Finlay.
Connie and Angus from Sneaky Sound System. Did you really stumble across Connie singing in a park?
We were in the city, we just had some meetings about something or other, and we walked past and there was this pretty girl with a friend on a rug with a guitar next